Hi guys, Dr. Mitch here to talk to you about assessing your own arm mobility. There's actually really easy ways you can check your arm mobility and make sure that you're maintaining that throughout the season. So I have Ryan over here. He's going to show us how we can assess shoulder flexion first. So what he's going to do is bring both of his arms up over his head. And what we're looking for here is that the throwing arm is nearly symmetrical with his non-throwing arm. So we can see that Ryan's lacking a little bit of motion, but he is fairly close to the other side. If you were to notice that we're getting quite a discrepancy, that's when we need to get in to see one of the physical therapists like myself during injury checks. Okay, so you bring your arms back. The next one we're going to look at is external rotation range of motion. So he's going to bring his elbows in line with his shoulders and just let his arms fall back. Okay, now what we're looking for here is that the throwing arm actually has just a little bit more motion than the non-throwing arm. So you can see that Ryan's throwing arm has just slightly more motion than his other side. Okay, then the last one we're going to look at is shoulder internal rotation. So again, we want to make sure that the elbows stay up in line with the shoulders, and he's just going to let his palms fall flat towards the ground. And what we can expect is we're actually going to have a little bit less motion on the throwing side. Now we can see with Ryan, he's lacking a good amount of internal rotation. If we're not close to symmetry and we're starting to lack more and more, again, that's when we want to make sure that we're not only doing our stretches, but if we start to see a large discrepancy, we want to make sure we come in injury checks to make sure we can take care of that mobility before it becomes an issue and can lead to injury risk down the road. Alright guys, so we've described that motion is important to maintain, but one thing that players often don't address is the motion in game. Recent research has found that motion can actually be lost throughout the game, so you want to make sure that you're addressing that and maintaining that motion, especially between innings. So one thing that's been found effective is something called the 2-out drill. So Ryan is going to show us what the 2-out drill is and how easy and quick it is to perform in between innings when you're throwing. So first exercise Ryan's going to show is internal rotation stretch. He's going to bring his opposite arm on top, and then he's going to hold for about 3 seconds into that stretch, repeating that twice. Next, Ryan's going to get a forearm stretch, and so he's going to place his palm up, straighten his elbow, and get a nice 3-second hold. Again, doing that twice. Next, we're going to loosen up the shoulders, so we're going to do big arm circles, 5 times clockwise, and then 5 times counterclockwise. Once he's done with that, he then brings them in for smaller arm circles, 5 times each direction. Okay, then we're going to do forearm touch. We're going to do 5 in and out. Kind of get a nice stretch on the pecs as he's going back, around the shoulders as he comes forward. Then we're going to get in the 90-90 position and do 5 field goals, going all the way back in external rotation, all the way down into internal rotation 5 times. Then he's going to end just getting the trunk loosened up. He's going to do 5 trunk turns, rotations each direction. So just after a couple simple movements, Ryan's ready to go back onto the field. His arm and his body's loosened up, so he's ready to go and perform at his best. All right guys, so I'm here to talk to you now about pre and post-game arm care. So we talked about how we can lose motion after throwing for up to 24 hours after an outing. So we need to make sure that we get that shoulder ready to go for the next time you're going to throw. So before and after pitching, you want to make sure that you're loosening up these shoulder muscles that can tend to get tight after repetitive throwing. So what you're going to do is take a lacrosse ball, find the back of that shoulder, right on top of that shoulder blade and right behind the shoulder, and just roll that area out. Okay, so you're just putting a little bit of pressure, finding tight spots, knots, and trying to work those out. Okay, do that for just a couple minutes. You can also hit other areas that seem to be tight, more behind the shoulder blade and in front near the pec. What you want to do after that is stretch. So there's various stretches you can do. Some of the ones I'd recommend is posterior shoulder stretch. So again, you're just going to be kind of leaning against the wall and blocking the shoulder blade. You want to bring your other arm over top and then just bring your arm across. making sure to block your shoulder blade so that your whole arm isn't coming with you. You should feel a stretch right in the back of that shoulder. You can also do this laying on the ground. Another stretch you can work in is just a forearm stretch. So making sure to pull back with the fingers and palm and straightening that elbow. Get a nice stretch in the forearm muscles. Okay? On top of that, you can work in some of the other arm care exercises we've described. Everybody is going to be a little bit individual in what they feel like helps them recover the most. So working in the J-bands, going for a little bit of an active cool down with a run or some dynamic movements can get the blood flowing and help to expedite that recovery process. If you're feeling any just general soreness, you can always ice. And as always, if you're feeling any focal or specific pain, you should stop, let your coach know, and then come stop and see us at the injury checks.